Good morning. Ever since Deacon Tom told me that the bishop once tripped and nearly broke his mitre on his way up or down from his pulpit, I entered it with fear and trepidation. I entered it with fear and trepidation whenever I'm up here. See, the all gets things that sometimes other people don't. This morning I decided to leave the Israelites in the desert with their complaining to Moses about the lack of water. God promised to take care of this, and we know the outcome of the story. Moses hits the rock with the staff, and water gushes out. Does the complaining stop?
Take the vote now.
Complaining to Moses does not stop, and I sympathize with Moses. After all, I was a parish priest for 37 years. I'm also leaving Jesus with the chief priests and the elders as they word spar. And Jesus challenges their authority as well as whom they care for. This Jesus of Nazareth was a tough customer, and he did not mince words when he took on the religious leaders of the day. The word of Paul to the Philippians this morning seems to preach a little better during Holy Week. At least it seems that way to me. So we'll save it for then. So today I'm going to reflect on the collect. And please excuse me if I make any reference to Exodus, Matthew, or Paul. The collect announces to us that the power of God is declared in God's showing mercy and pity. Certainly God showed mercy and pity to the children of Israel. He parted the Red Sea so that they could escape slavery. He provided water in the desert, not to mention fowl to feast upon, as well as manna from heaven, which was the very food of angels. They still complained, for they were a stubborn and stiff-necked people. But God never quits on God's beloved creation. Jesus was always quick to show mercy and pity to the sick, to the lame, to lepers, to women, children, tax collectors and prostitutes, and roundly criticized by the chief priests and elders. Jesus, on the other hand, had no patience for those who were uncaring towards the downtrodden. He usually verbally dressed them down or made them look foolish. The mercy and pity of God are promises of God which we are implored to run after. There are other promises as well. The promise of our relationship with the Blessed Holy Trinity, the promise of our emulating Jesus. Well, you can make your own list. But the idea of running after these promises of God really struck me. It got me thinking about running when I was a child. And the first thing that came to mind was the hearing of, wait a second. Don't go away. I don't know why I decided to open down there twice. But the first thing that came to mind was the hearing of in the distance. It says here, what do you do with the bells after you ring them? Where was that? Off in the distance. What do you think that sound was? Sanctus bells from church? It meant, those jingle bells off in the distance, meant that the good humor man, or Judy Ann, or the bungalow money to obtain the promise made by that music. Fortunately, we lived on a dead-end street, so the good humor man had to turn around and put it in the block. So a little extra time. One of three things was promised depending on which vendor arrived. A humorette. Do you know what a humorette is? Alice and John. Orange ice and vanilla ice cream. Philadelphians and people in South Jersey probably have a creamsicle. That I guess. That was the good humor day. If it was Judean, it was a drumstick. You know what a drumstick is? Don't tell me part of a turkey. It's an ice cream cone with vanilla ice cream covered with frozen chocolate and peanuts. So it looks like a sort of. Yeah, you did, yes. What did you call it?
What a nice cream cone with chocolate covered.
I deserve that one. Here's an easier reason. Well, I'm still getting my head wrapped around Jimmy's instead of Sprinkles. This is easier. If it was Bungalow Bar, it was an ice cream sandwich. The only place I found a different ice cream sandwich was in Rome, not New York, Rome, Italy, which was pistachio gelato on a brioche roll. Now I'm hungry. Ran home to get money because of the jingling bells in the distance making promises, and the treasures were obvious. I also can remember running home from the basketball court with my treasured Spalding basketball tucked under one arm so I wouldn't be late for dinner. Time just went away when one was shooting baskets or playing basketball. And when one saw the time, you knew you had to get home in a hurry, otherwise you'd get the look. I also vividly remember running home from school one October afternoon, carrying books and my French horn case to catch the last few innings of Don Larson pitching his perfect World Series game. That was a long run. I'm still out of breath from that. I also have a memory of a family when I was rector at St. John's in Dover. There were 3 boys in the Ranger family. At that time, they were probably about, 13, 11, and 9. And their mom, Laura, managed to keep a tight rein on them. That's when one realized that mothers had 4 hands, 3 arms, and eyes in the back of their head. But one Sunday, they were getting ready to go up to the union, and the 3 boys started to break into a run. And Mom somehow curtailed them. And the oldest was heard to say, "But Mom, I'm in a hurry to get some of that salvation." Wow. In a hurry to obtain the promise of salvation that God makes to us. What a wonderful and beautiful image that is. In a hurry to get some of that salvation. Excuse me. Come to think of it, running is a theme in the New Testament. Mary ran to the tomb. John ran. Peter ran. St. Paul uses the image of athletes running to obtain the prize, or could we say treasure. Paul is speaking of having a lively and dynamic spirituality that is never satisfied with being passive, but always on the run towards God through Jesus Christ. In today's collect, we also ask God for the fullness of grace, so we may obtain the promises and partake of God's treasure. And I was thinking about that. For some reason, you know me well enough, why I turned to the hymnal and found some Celtic spirituality in the words of this hymn. God be in my head and in my understanding. God be in my eyes and in my looking. God be in my mouth and in my speaking. God be in my heart and in my thinking. God be in my end and at my departure. So we run. We run with Mary and John and Peter to witness the promise and the treasure of the resurrection of Jesus. We run after the prize or treasure described by St. Paul, which is eternal life. We run with those ranger boys to get some of that salvation. Dare we be so bold and so enthusiastic